Morning, Christ Central. For listeners coming on later, I'm Richard. I'm a member of Christ Central, and I'm giving you today Esther 1 to 8. And it goes like this. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. And she begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Jews. And then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. If it pleases the king, she said, and he regards me with favor and thinks it's the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family? King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, because Haman attacked Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have hanged him on the gallows. Now write another decree in the king's name on behalf of the Jews, as seems best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked. So yesterday we had the climax of the story in many ways, because the dastardly villain Haman was exposed and hanged. So that was a victory for Esther, Mordecai, and the Jews, but that doesn't mean that they were out of danger and they could live happily forever after, because the edict calling for the Jews to be killed was still in place. And Esther has to do that scepter thing where she goes in front of the king and she touches the scepter to get it revoked. Now, the king is only happy to do this. He seems to be more than willing to leave all the details of ruling to others and not to pay too much attention to what they're up to, so he can get on with partying, which is a way of governing that got the Jews into this pickle in the first place. And I think what struck me about this passage is that over and over again in literature, in fiction, and in history, you get this sort of pattern of victory being gained over an evil leader, but that not being the end of the saga. Then, although you've sort of managed to get rid of the baddie, you've then got to clear up all the mess that he's made. Sort of in fiction, you get something like Lord of the Rings. If you know the story, Frodo manages to get the ring into the volcano, Sauron is defeated, and then they go home and they find that their home, the Shire, has been trashed and they need to spend ages clearing it up. And in real life, often you get this sort of situation when an oppressive leader is overthrown. It doesn't all immediately go back to being wonderful. There's still stuff to do. So in 1945, once Hitler was dead, and a note to all you conspiracy theorists out there, he really did die, and Germany surrendered, it wasn't suddenly all fine again. Europe was shattered and needed rebuilding, and people had very difficult lives for years. Rationing continued in Britain until the 1950s. Large parts of Europe didn't gain freedom until the fall of the Berlin Wall in the 1980s. More recently, in Iraq, We saw the toppling of Saddam Hussein. Villainous leader is deposed. But did we get peace and joy and love for the people of that country? No, we didn't. Whether his removal will make the lives of ordinary people better is still unclear 20 years later. And yesterday, we saw Trump departing and Biden sworn in as president of the United States. I personally think Trump is a villain. I know some Christians see him as God's instrument, like a new Cyrus, but if you find yourself backing the same guy as neo-Nazis and white supremacists, you've probably backed the wrong guy. Now that he's no longer in power, it doesn't suddenly mean life goes back to normal. There's a divided nation to heal, and I hope the new president can do that, but it's something we will see. So in the story of Esther, there is now this bit about clearing up the mess that Haman left. And clearing up is something that I have very mixed feelings about in this story, but whoever gets that passage will deal with that in the coming days. As Christians, we have a similar story of a villain being defeated, but that defeat being the start of a new phase of the story and not the end of it. And the clearing up afterwards taking a long time and taking some wrong turns. In our case, the villain was the biggest one imaginable, and the victory total, because the villain was evil and death itself, which were defeated when Jesus died and rose again. But once Jesus did that, we didn't jump straight to the happily ever after. We've spent 2,000 years on the clear up, putting that victory into practice. And we've taken many wrong turns. Some results have been very mixed, but in the end, it will bear fruit and it will have all been worth it. And we know that. We get to live happily after in heaven, but we have got instructions not to sit on our butts and wait around till we get there. Our task is to prepare for that future by building heaven on earth. It's hard work. There will be disappointment. There will be wrong turns, but it will be worth it. So let's not lose heart and carry on working at it. And that's all I have for you.